sociale mediaplatforms vandaag de dag gaat kwaliteitsinhoud vaak onopgemerkt voorbij. Op Den krijgen gebruikers betaald voor het maken, evalueren en beheren van kwaliteitsinhoud. Contentmakers worden beloond op basis van de betrokkenheid en het bereik van een bericht of opmerking. Contentbeoordelaars worden beloond op basis van de snelheid en resultaten van hun voorspellingen over welke content trending zal zijn of viraal zal gaan. Eigenaren van communities worden beloond op basis van betrokkenheid binnen een community. Kwaliteitsinhoud loont op Den.
Hello and welcome to another glorious meeting. This is the DENDAO weekly governance call for 5/12/2022, or May 12th, 22. Depending on where you live in the world, the numbers might be out of order. We've got a little bit of an agenda for updates and stuff here. We can talk about what's been going on over the past week and what's coming up next. And we have a denizen on the line that we'll talk to about some matters after we get through the initial agenda there. As usual, Joe Roats is with us for the call, and this call is open to all denizens who want to discuss governance matters and things that are maybe more, business development, procedural, the boring stuff that matters. You can join the call with the link that is at the top of the post in the DENDAO layer. It says link to join, and it's a StreamYard link. So click on that, and you can come in and talk to us. If you do pop in and announced, just drop us a line in private chat to let us know what you're here for, and we'll bring you up and discuss. So, hello, Joe. How you doing? You holding together over there?
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
Just really busy, tight schedule, all the rest of it.
Yes. Yeah. Me too. It's sometimes when you get enough irons in the fire, you got to start managing them all at the same time. So that's where I'm at, and it's fun, but it's a lot. Yeah. If you are one of our Gainesville people, I'll be at the market today, actually, and every week here on out talking about stuff. So swing by. Right. We have a cool broadcast coming up that we haven't talked about too much, but we can maybe talk about showcasing that for marketing if we decide it's a good idea to show, what you can do and how you can get artists paid, especially local ones and stuff like that. But let's talk about what's on screen here. We talked about direct messaging last week. And I think we might even talk about this when we talk about the matter payout issue we had, because the way that we're designing, the way that DMs are being designed, it's not just, DMs put in there, something that somebody else already did and the way that it's already been done by other people. No, this is sort of taking all of the concepts of Den and applying it to DMs too. So there's a marketplace involved, there's filtering and sorting utility involved, and all of it can sort of naturally be done via the the tokenomics system. I'm not sure if that's a proper way to describe it.
Behavior system.
Behavior system. Yeah, behavior systems. Yeah. So that's going to be incorporated into the DMs too, to the point where, like, if you're a really popular person and you just can't keep up with the flood of DMs coming in, you can set a minimum threshold of, hey, offer me up some lore or some matter, so I know you're serious and not just spamming me, and we can talk. You know what I mean? And if it is spam, you can just take the money and run and make it expensive for people to spam you. But if it was a valuable conversation, then you can just refund it and say, oh, hey, thanks for hitting me up. So that'll be cool to try out, and then naturally, depending on how much people offer up to have the conversation, that'll filter for you by presumably, spam artists won't have as much collateral to throw at you, and that'll be at the bottom. But people that are more serious about it and have actually something to say would be at the top. That's the theory. We'll see how well the game theory plays out and tweak it as necessary.
Right.
So related to that, there was some internal development going on, which created a temporary issue that is resolved now from the payouts over the weekend.
Right. It's pretty worth I guess, even noting the reason that it was the deployment of a refactored backend service. So it's essentially where where the front end, where the browser or mobile will hit a service in the back end, and where it has the ability to handle the committed value, whether it's lore or matter, and then how it essentially, move. If somebody opens it up, then okay, now you have the tip or whatever we call it. I don't know what we're calling it, but let's say somebody offers you 1,000 matter, so you open it up. Now you have 1,000 matter. You also have a button where you can refund it, right? But so when they were working all of that, in fact, I was even in on some of the debugging that is really interesting, because it was basically just it was addressed in the one place where it was most obvious, but ended up affecting 5 other services in a way that wasn't expected. And when they found that, they were able to drill down and fix them. So should be good now.
Cool. And those payouts were rerun with the correct on-chain data to make everything reflect as normal. So that's resolved at this point. So if during those days you were noticing something that didn't look right, it should look right now. Is the
and there result. Is Jackson, Jaxson, asked a question. I believe it was in the Den layer. I'm pretty sure it was in the Den layer that essentially covered that. So if you want detail on some of the design and the philosophical, which kind of stretches Dragon Chain and Den, it might be looking at that. So.
And that was by Jackson. You think it was in the DENDAO? Okay, cool.
Pretty sure it was in DENDAO.
I don't know if I've.
No, I'm pretty sure it was in Den, actually.
Okay.
I think it was Den itself.
Yeah, I'll look that up myself later.
So we have it. We have it in private chat.
Oh, good.
Sorry. I'm on a laptop. I'm not full. I don't have full capabilities here.
Okay. Yes, seeking clarifications, and then there's a thread here. Okay.
Yeah. He had really good questions. And I think
I did read some of it. Yes.
Thoroughly as I could answer. But if anybody has questions that draw on those, by all means, throw them in there. We'll, because it's super interesting for the design and what it means for how, is Den fully decentralized? Can it be fully decentralized? And the various other pieces, right? So. Anyway.
Oh, these are good questions. I've read the first half of this. That's why I was unfamiliar. I have to go back and read the second half. So cool. Yeah. Thanks, Jacksons, for that. And you, Joe, for the reply, since I obviously didn't see it.
You should be thanking me for the memes. That meme was beautiful. Not that one.
I was going to say that's a no scope.
That one I love.
It's the next one, emoji face. This one I didn't even read it. I scrolled past it.
This one is funny.
Yeah, buy your products on my PC still has a virus. Somebody was talking about in the same vein. Somebody was talking about Bill Gates having a virus, being sick, and I was like, shouldn't have killed McAfee. They need him now for that. They need the antivirus. What are you doing?
Horrible.
Yeah. Bad jokes.
The difference is Microsoft creates the viruses both inside and outside of software, and then they also have the cures, right? Both inside and outside of software.
Yeah, that was always the joke.
Maybe I'm wrong.
That was always the joke when I was in the Navy, because we always use Norton products in the Navy, and it was always like it's a worse virus than an actual virus to have on a computer.
Horrible.
It was so unusable. Everything. Yeah. We'll make sure the virus can't get to you by making your system completely unusable, so neither of you can get to it.
That's literally true. I remember running it on Windows 3.1, and my God, it was worthless. It was just like I had to. I don't know if I reinstalled it. I got so pissed off.
Yeah.
Of course, I think it was a stolen Norton, a copy of Norton.
Oh well, it's your fault then. Yeah.
Anyway, I was a kid. All right.
Okay, so back to the point here, I guess. Not that I don't like debating about different antivirus software of the past on Windows 3.1, but on Den 2.0.112, we have what else do we have here? Yes. So voting's open. Commitment phase for the LCP in May is open, so you can go vote on your layers right now. And the decision was for the winners was that we will have this round number one from unique voters, like usual. And then this time We're not going to cut so deep into it this time. We're going to have 3 and 5 instead of 8 and 13 as our winners by most lore committed. And I guess let me just look at that real quick since I'm
the interesting thing about this is, at least when I looked yesterday, number 3 was also the top unique, which is funny. So I hadn't even thought, but I mean, of course, that would make sense that that's a reasonable
if
thing.
we're closer to the top, it's more likely that they're going to match. I think you're right. Yeah. And it's it's less interesting to not have, a million lore, a lot created for a layer or whatever I'm trying to say there.
Yep.
I just as for transparency, I talked about this on coffee this week, but I think Decent Gains, which is we have an account you've probably seen with the Gainesville layer and stuff. We're looking into, because of market conditions right now, 2,500 matter to buy a layer that has at least 8 unique voters is a really good deal at the moment. So we talked about it already. 2 of the 3 of us have talked about it. We'll talk about it more today when we have our meeting, but we actually might be one of the first people to take Den up on that for the tutorials layer. There's a tutorials and demos or whatever it's called layer, and there's like 9 or maybe 10 unique voters on it. Maybe 30,000 or however many total lore committed. So as a business decision, I think we're like, you know what, we've been talking about all of these tutorials that we've never made. We might buy into this tutorial thing and put them all there, and that could be something that we potentially, if we're good enough at our job, we can build that up and make it something profitable for ourselves, and really take advantage of the situation that the markets are in. So just some thoughts on my end as like an outside, as a customer of Den as much as a team member over here.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Let's see. So that's going to be the winners. We talked about the matter payouts. All right. So at this point, I think we can probably move into general discussion, and we can talk about what the process is going to be after DMs come out. We're going to run another vote to see what the prioritization is, right? And then we can talk about so there can be 13 on the list when it goes out. I don't know if the one that we're about to talk about is on the list. So it might be a conversation about where to put it and like if we're going to vote for that versus everything else on it. So cool. You good with that? We ready for that or what?
Sure.
Cool. All right. I'm going to bring I Am for I Am up, who has written, I think I have it pulled up here somewhere. I thought I did. Yes. I'll pull this up and we shall chat. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome back. Not to the same show, but a different show, same week.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Hey. All right.
Roundtable was really good today. Appreciate that.
Oh, thanks.
And,
yeah.
And a side note, my dad. Well, my last name is Norton, and my dad invented the antivirus. So I'm a little offended right
there.
now.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Well, you're gonna have to open a Norton layer so you can set the record straight.
Yeah, I'm anti-McAfee. No.
I am for I am Norton.
Yes.
That's on the birth certificate.
Who uses McAfee?
Who uses McAfee? Yeah.
Yes.
No, but I hope you folks don't mind the blue tape over the camera.
I don't know. Like you said, it looks like the background image for a high school photo. It's pretty.
Right. That's the whole concept. No, I honestly do travel, and I travel to Mexico, and I don't want certain people to know that
understandable.
I'm retired and how I became retired. So
yeah.
Yep.
I think you can understand that. But anyway, the story goes, I still lost everything in a boating accident. So.
Okay. Wow.
So
real quick,
wrote up you have a good post in Den about some options for reducing some of the burden on fees and kind of like the rails for getting matter out of Den and things like that. And,
right, and this is a proposal for a proposal. It's
yes,
certainly not written as such, and understanding. Well, first and foremost, I'm so glad that I did find Den, because I'm really sold on what it's trying to accomplish. I have an ongoing conversation with my son, who's very brilliant, and he's always arguing with me about the idea of that Den is mob rule. And I said, well, what would you like to do? Would you like to vote for a representative for your social media posting, or would you prefer the current status quo of Facebook and Twitter and everyone else telling you what you can or can't post, what you can see or not see, and then also be inundated with ads? So I think Den has tremendous potential for the world, and not just, I think the majority of our probably user base is stateside, but the fees are certainly an issue, I think, for and I don't have hard data, but for user retention, understanding that we're in beta. And but more importantly, I think my biggest point, and Joe, I certainly don't want this proposal. And after I've read it again, I kind of thought, wow, this really comes at like a money kind of thing. And it's not that at all. My real gut tells me that there are a lot of people out there in the world that could provide amazing content in various countries, who just would like to have some kind of trickled income coming in. And that's just impossible with today's, FVs. And I don't see the merge correcting that problem. Hence the point of the solution. Then finally, I'd like to just state that I'm not sold on. I mentioned that Polygon is a possibility. I'm very familiar with it for various reasons, and I have my contacts within Avalanche, and I like a lot of them. But I state the reasons why I went down as Polygon as a potential. But the idea and the general concept here is to roll MTR back up into Den. And I'm not addressing lore or lot. That could be done at the same time or later, depending on how the DINs sync and feel and vote. Mm-hmm. But the idea, in general terms, is roll MTR back into Den. Everything stays the same. Nothing changes in that regard. We're only changing the on and off ramp for Den. And that on and off ramp would be, rather than atomic swap, I think that's in its infancy, and there's a lot of issues with that. And we'd still be dealing with an platform. But rather maybe kind of as bad analogy, but the tip function that we have, it would almost function like a tip function, and you folks are in this business, you know it well. So as a user would be able to swap, switch, exchange, whichever term you want to use, albeit I'm concerned about using the terms exchange, swap, because of SEC. But the idea of the MTR being swapped into another token, and that token is the one that moves you on and off the platform. Right. Which would be the low fees. Currently, a send transaction in Polygon is, when Polygon was $1, was a third of a cent, a sixth of a cent. I do small interactions, and I was at $0.015 last week with some testing that I was doing with another token that's potential launch. And so, that's the reason for it. I'm thinking that if somebody we have a prominent user from Venezuela, what a wonderful thing if they could take advantage of these low fees that are out there now. Beautiful thing about Matic is it shares the same Ethereum address. So a user with their MetaMask wallet would be able to interact and see that same address. It's just a different, pointer or, RPC, whatever. So right. I like that concept of it.
I like that that MetaMask is to the point where people can just click and add a different RPC endpoint, and they no longer have to go through all the manual process. Mm-hmm. I guess my question would be, assuming we did this, what on the post, there's a lot of like you're talking about adding a different token and rolling matter back up into Den. I guess what I'm thinking is, number one, matter's already out there. So how do you call everybody up and say, hey, bring your matter back in? But number two, like, why not just have it matter on the other network, right? If we can do it in a way that doesn't require us to add more tokens and things like that, we could potentially, like we talked a little bit briefly last week, Joe, you and I, about, I guess Dragon Chain called it a wormhole back when it was initially sort of proposed or written. I read that a little bit, and I'm not sure if that's the best way, or if like, sending it in and back out of Den as a a gatekeeper to make sure only a certain number of matter is unlocked at any given time across all networks, because I would like to keep everything the same, and the only difference would be whenever you essentially whenever you're exporting withdrawing matter,
Sure,
you could have an option like, okay, do you want to take it to Ethereum? Do you want to take it to Solana? Do you want to take it to Avalanche? That kind of thing. And if we could design it in a way, now this is probably going to require if we did it the way that I'm thinking, it would require DENDAO to have a substantial amount locked up on external networks to provide the ability to move in and out of the different networks, without making any fake matter or a new coin. But I think that's doable.
Can I unpack that? Can I unpack that real quick, because you've thrown a lot of quick questions.
Yeah. I'm thinking out loud, so sure.
And that's good. And if you scroll down, I do mention that in one of the diagrams I talk about we could do multiple, Solana, Polygon, etc. The issue does become a liquidity point. I have absolutely zero intention. I like the scarcity of matter. And so adding additional matter is, for me, a no-go. And I would vote down this proposal in a second, in a heartbeat, if we wanted to talk about increasing the quantity of matter. Okay. And if you scroll down just one more diagram, I think that kind of talks about that. So one more up, if you could.
Yes.
There you go. The yellow box in the top right is essentially the genesis of the tokens, and we would mint the exact amount. I don't think you can probably do that, but we'd mint the same amount, kind of like a snapshot of matter, and they would essentially go into 4 pots. They would go into the matter that didn't come back to DIN to be swapped out. So that total would represent what's in the open market in private wallets sitting on, Uniswap version 2.3, which, and so those totals would match. The concept of the Ethereum that's in the liquidity pool would be swapped out into Polygon, and then that would go into a liquidity pool. The quantity that's sitting in the DIN contract, that would be another address, if you will, that would constantly be matched. Then finally, the tipping function, shall we say, those that are coming in and going out of matter, out of DIN, that would be the other pool. So I don't like it that I don't know how you would automate this function, but that speaks to this. Now, in regards to matter being switched over to Polygon and that kind of thing, there are some certainly pros and cons to that. My con is that we didn't secure the matter name and the symbol. And when I say that, I'm not meaning confusion in the marketplace. Certainly there is that. But when you add confusion to the marketplace, you add additional scammers to the marketplace. And by having a more isolated name, because we're in beta, matter still isn't really known out there. And I give some examples. We could kind of stay with the same, nomenclature, whatever. But we could go with, kinetic or I can't remember what the other one was, something along energy or something, or we could go with something on the Dragon side of it, or we could just call it DENS, DENS. and the name would be Den.Social, and the token symbol would be DENS. I think that's for all the denizens to vote on, and come up with a plan if we went forward with it. And I don't know if we're going to see, all of that matter roll back up into Den, if we were to go through with this. That brings a question of liquidity in the liquidity pool. But keep in mind that when you trade on, Polygon on a DEX, you're way under $1 in fees.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I traded, I think I put it in the proposal last week, and I bought, $10 worth of a token, and my fee was 3 cents, I think, or something. So that is certainly doable for some, disadvantaged countries that wanted to look at Den as a content income earning stream,
Yeah, I can definitely, here's where we're definitely on the same page 100%, is that concept right there, where any human with a brain and a phone or a computer that they pull out of the trash or whatever can work, and earn some rewards and be able to take that. And, there's some learning and some math and some, frustration involved, but where is there not in life? So as many barriers as can be taken away from that as possible, I'm all for it, especially if you're talking about right now, it's arguable to say that $150 to pay and then burn to the miners over on Ethereum is absurd, right? And that takes a lot of the usefulness away from the perspective of people that are solely trying to extract value out of the system, I guess, in the form of something they can swap for, US dollars or Bitcoin or something like that. There's also a lot of utility that the matter does have in platform. I want to at least, mention that, where just to be able to make the function work in a way that, like, the whole point of, using it for the utility of it inside the system is to promote people, give them a bigger voice if they prove their merit in the communities, and also to reward those behaviors with lore, which will allow them to be owners of the platform, right? So right now in my opinion, we're very much trying to identify, like, this platform needs a lot of people to work for it, lots of team members, lots of people that are building it together, and we're in a really good position right now to identify those denizens via the reward systems, and who, right now, just taking it and re-rolling it into lot in each month, and that kind of thing. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't know where the priority will land once it ends up on the priorities list, because we've got a list of things to work on. And I don't know if this is in there, but it should probably be added. We need to add this in there to be voted on.
Right. I think isn't that the first step, is to add it to the list, and then once the list is there, then everyone votes on that list. That's probably the second step. First step would be coming together on some sort of, like, okay, if we add another network, what does that look like? And how do we add it? Which is what we're talking about exactly right now. So once we have an engineering direction, we can be like, okay, this seems doable, if that's what everybody wants, and we can add it and vote on it. And by the way, and again, and I can't stress this enough, this new token would be 1-to-1 to matter. So there is no difference as far as quantity goes. And its functionality is solely for on and off of DIN, and to give DIN a better market presence by name, shall we say? Because remember, the quantity of users coincides with the addition of new users, as well as their ability, if we're selling it somewhat as you can earn from your content and content evaluations, then we have to make that a possibility for people, which just kills
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah.
so in other words, for us to attract those people, we're going to need to provide that solution in some way, shape, or form.
I do want to say that, like, the only real, I don't, it is prohibitive to, like, if you don't want to, what am I trying to say? It has to make economic sense for you to withdraw matter from Den, right?
Mhm.
It has to work out economically for you. All that the high fee effectively means is you got to earn way more rewards before it makes economic sense to pull it out, probably, right? So that it doesn't shut anyone out as much as it delays, like, how often they're able to farm, to harvest what they farmed, that kind of thing, So I would push back a little bit and say, well, it's kind of, maybe it's a once a quarter thing. You pull out your matter once a quarter that you need, instead of trying to do it in micro payments and things like that. And that doesn't mean that we can't make it easier, but I don't want to say that there isn't a path there, because there definitely is, and it does work.
Yeah, it works for some that can afford it. I would argue that point as for pushback, but you're absolutely right. I mean, well, and
Or who can wait and
here's
build
a
more.
negative. Here's a negative. You're right. Here's something that does concern me with this proposal. I'm open and honest, because my concern is everyone that's got matter right now is, oh wow, I got a cheap way to exit, and now all this matter floods the market. Okay, that would be a concern item, and because we want to retain, users, and we want to retain.
That's a good point.
But we want to provide them incentive as well as provide them a reason to stay.
Yeah, I don't want to add artificial friction just because there's not enough utility to use it inside of Den or something like that.
And we're not changing any of there. We're not changing anything there.
Yeah, I think what I'm thinking mostly is what you said about making it more difficult, and that opening it up to more scammers, maybe by confusing people
with the name,
and especially with, if you are building a platform that is supposed to be easy enough for non-technical people, that is something to be concerned of. I don't think making a different token and calling it a different name makes it less confusing, though. I feel like that makes it more confusing. It's like, oh, over on here, it's called, outside of Den, it's called Dens, but inside of Den, it's called Matter. Or maybe, you'd have to change the way that it's presented inside of Den too, to call it Dens, but maybe internally, your record keeping is called Matter. There's confusion there, and I don't know which one's better. Whether the confusion over, oh, it's Solana Matter versus AVAX Matter versus Ethereum Matter, or the confusion over, well, outside of Den it's called Dens, but inside of Den it's called Matter.
Mm-hmm. You're earning matter and you're swapping the matter to X.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's less confusing,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Kind of thing. What do you think, Joe?
And I'll say, anytime we get into the money side, everything in the world is against us. That, and in terms of the banks. So certainly, it'd be freaking amazing if we could just provide. Why do we need to even force someone to go out to Uniswap at all?
Right. There is that.
The way they wanted it. That's the only way, you know. So it's a crazy thing, but so anything that touches upon that turns into a massive heartburn, because then you have to talk to a lawyer, and you have to make sure that you don't do something, as an engineer, that a banker would say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this," right? So you have to be super careful, and it makes it super expensive. We're on Ethereum because, and one more point, we're on Ethereum because of the security and because of the broad use, right? You have a lot of users. Some people won't use Solana. Some people won't use Polygon. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't, and I wouldn't be against using them. But I have a couple of points on potentially some things we could do that I would be open to, that would probably potentially fit this whole thing. But then there is also, what you just mentioned too, what we even have called it out as economic reputation, because theoretically I might think this is a great piece of content and I'm going to bet on it in the prediction market because this is perfect for this group. But if I know that this person is going to take anything they earn and dump it, then I might attenuate the amount of energy I put into it. And that should be a natural thing that should be transparent, that look, you have the full freedom to pull value out, but that's a leak as far as my value is concerned. You know, if I want this network to grow, then I want matter to be worth more so that people can be rewarded. And the more people on the platform that are just constantly dumping it, the harder that is, right? So the economic reputation is a huge thing. And so I'm like, this is, for me personally, less of a priority. And because it's, you know, it is at trying to get the vision in place, this is almost a distraction. I mean, I understand the reasoning and I agree with it, that making things right now, I would rather obviously spend how do I say, it's a leak. I mean, essentially every Ethereum fee is a leak on value of whatever project is using it, right? So it's it's a tax to use Ethereum. And so yeah, anywhere that we could avoid that, all the better. And, you know, frankly, you know, we with a non-custodial wallet, we made it so that the user chooses when they do it. Like Dave said, that they might choose to do it quarterly if it's too expensive and they only make a certain, you know, you make a few bucks a month, and, you know, you're not going to spend the big Ethereum fees to pull it out very often. Which, you know, it's a weird tax on the user. But the other side of it is if, and I don't know enough about Polygon. I've seen some of their architecture. I've talked to some of their people. They've been successful. It looks like, you know, it's a good project, but I don't have the confidence that if it took off like Ethereum did for the reasons of the ecosystem, that it wouldn't end up with the same fees. I might be wrong about that, but, you know, I know as an example, like say Binance Smart Chain, it was like, oh, move it to Binance, it's cheaper fees. And it's like, well, it's cheaper fees because there's no one there and it's more centralized. So obviously gonna be cheaper fees. And it might be a better strategy, although we would have to figure out what to do with the existing. And while you guys were talking, I was trying to look at the Matter contract itself to see if it can be burned. And it doesn't look like it can. But you could, you know, essentially if we were to say, okay, we're going to do a multi-network approach instead. And I wouldn't even potentially say we need to complicate things with wormholes, because I think it might be okay to say, we take a snapshot. You now have, you know, as of that date, this is where the matter is. You hope it's not on an exchange. You better own the keys, right? After that snapshot, you come in and claim whatever address had the matter. Essentially now that's in-house. Now we create a new Matter contract that is variable, I guess, that instead of minting 1,000 every day, that we'd either have a mechanism, and preferably it would just be based upon, you know, where the users pull it, that the minting would occur when they pull it out of Den instead of daily. And then they could pull it out on whichever network they wanted, Polygon, Solana, Binance, or Ethereum. And they would just have smaller supplies on each network. And it'd be interesting to see how many people pull out on Ethereum versus the others, right? That could be a cool thing.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. So you could have it to where, like, even if you're on Ethereum already, you could, now this is going to be an Ethereum fee, of course. So, you know, the first contract interaction you would have would be that fee to bring it into Den from your MetaMask or whatever, where you hold the keys. But then from then, you could literally just, whenever you export to whatever network, you just mint it there as users export it over on the other network. Mm-hmm. And then you account for that in Den, and there's no mismatch.
Yep. And even and the crazy thing about it with Dragon Chain is,
or as they mine it internal to Den, same thing, they mint it out there.
Yeah, you'd be mining it in Den as the primary, and then you would be pulling it out on the others. Now,
at that point, you would be if I could interject something real quick. Yeah. I think Dave, maybe you wouldn't have to hit Ethereum at all because you would be minting it on DIN. And if you selected Solana or Polygon or whatever, you would be that blockchain's gas fee that you would be paying.
Right. Yeah.
Am I correct in understanding you, Joe?
Yes. And then there are two other points to make about it that I think the two most important points. One is a good one on the positive, that because this is written atop Dragon Chain, we could, after the fact, we wouldn't have to do it day one. Like, let's say day one, we have a snapshot so we can recover all the matter. Now you can pull it out on what, if you have all your matter, like say, I've never taken matter out of DIN, mine's still in DIN. So I could just say, oh, I'm going to pull it out on Polygon or Solana. And let's see here. How do I say this? That we could, after the fact, add a wormhole to it. And yet we would probably do it where you would have to provably, burn your tokens on Ethereum after the, let's say, oh shoot, they were in exchange, but I can still pull them out after the fact. Now I could burn them on Ethereum from my claimed wallet, and I could ask to export them on Polygon or on Solana. You could do that, and you could do it after the fact. You could add that as a feature if we wanted. The bad side of it, which we would have to put a lot of effort into, would be the security itself, because if you can mint it on all of them, then we would need to have something that would let any user look at where it all exists, right? That I can see, okay, there are supposed to be how many thousand are there? It's what is it?
Like 800 and something thousand, yeah.
So say it's 800,000 today. Where are they? And it needs to add up, and it needs to reconcile, right?
Right. And I mentioned that too. That reconciliation could be difficult.
Yeah.
But if we go to multiple markets, it's going to be very difficult to provide liquidity on these different pools.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It just
at least in the beginning. In the beginning, unless the value goes up significantly.
Yeah, well, I would say though,
which right I think it will, but
it's very expensive to do it on Ethereum, whereas I imagine it's much cheaper to do on the other networks.
That's a really good point too, because part of the issue migrating, and the reason that we waited for a while to migrate, well, one of the reasons that we waited for a while to migrate from V2 to V3, which, by the way, if you're one of the people that still has liquidity over on V2, you're not doing yourselves any favors, I think. Maybe migrate that to V3. But the initial creation of the contract over on V3 for the liquidity pool, so that people could then, add their liquidity to it without having to create that contract in the beginning and pay that, was like $1,000 to just create the contract over on the.
It's more than that.
It's probably more than that.
It was a lot.
That was a safe number. It was a lot. It was over $1,000.
And versus say a couple of dollars on Avalanche or Polygon.
Right, and even after that, to set up your personal liquidity, you go and add, and you want to get your little NFT liquidity card that shows up on OpenSea and all that, which are pretty neat. I got to give them that. But the user has to pay still $200-300 to add their liquidity or something like that. You know what I mean? Even without having to pay the big contract fee, the contract interaction fee is still prohibitive. So you don't have as many people adding liquidity to it. So that's another problem. So you're right. We probably would have an easier time getting liquidity over there. Potentially marketing could be leveraged, to that community on those other networks. Hey, now DIN is technically on your network, right? I
would even say it could be kind of fun because you could do this on Ethereum and then leave it open, and the DAO could decide, hey, let's add network X. And then we just plug that in and let people,
let the users decide if they want to add liquidity or not. That's not up to DIN to create liquidity on these DEX. Right. Not only that, I think that creates maybe a potential problem with the lawyers, the SEC regulations, if DIN is involved in creating liquidity pools on different sites.
Well, that's what we have.
And I think that would I don't That's a huge.
Well, that's why that's in the DENDAO as one of the behavior points, because we wanted to make sure that you had representation for the people pursuing matter in the content area, pursuing lot and lore in the owner area, and then also the token itself. So if you are just all about the liquidity pool, then you have a say, right? And that was a big piece of that it's half of 2 votes. So it's essentially 1 of 3 votes is the liquidity itself.
Right. So you can see, like, this is my votes over here. And, I've got a lot of the liquidity that counts for the vote over in the creator side. I imagine that if it was easier to add liquidity, if there's less friction, if you had to waste less money to add liquidity,
Yes.
I would have less of that share, which would be good and healthy for the DAO. But yeah, potentially we could create like this liquidity group of governance of DENDAO members could incorporate the liquidity from all the official liquidity pools. Like you've got this much on Ethereum, you got this much on Poly, you got this much on Avalanche, whatever the thing is. That could work. That's what I was going to say. That's why we have the incentivization for people to go out and add liquidity, because they do get to direct the show more if they do that, and they do have more of a say in the DENDAO governance votes if they do that. So that could be a way to get more participation as well. I'm just trying to think of all the things that could go along with this positively.
I don't know of any blockchain that can provide, that could be another niche for us. I don't think there's any other blockchain that can say, hey, you want an on-ramp, off-ramp in which of these 5, because this concept of a wrapped token, a wrapped Bitcoin, it gets a little edgy,
but if it's all coming out of the same place and you're just
it's beautiful.
Where do you go?
It's beautiful, and I don't think anyone's doing that out there either.
That's just why I don't want to do a wrapped token. Yeah, exactly.
If you select for on-ramp and off-ramp, you're selecting your on-ramp path or blockchain or off-ramp. I think that's beautiful. And I think that probably helps a lot on the legal side for Den, because Den's not making any of that choice. They just created maybe a portal, but having nothing to do with liquidity on a DEX.
It'd also give us it would give DENDAO an opportunity to collect a fee on transfer between networks, where you'd have to burn it on Solana to move it over to Avalanche, right? So, but you'd have to burn it on Solana, then come into Den, claim the account that you burned it from. Boom! Now you're accredited. Now I can pull them out on Avalanche, and there's a fee there, right? So.
And if the network fees are low enough, we can charge our own reasonable fee, because that is work and special utility that you could potentially charge for the DENDAO treasury kind of thing. So
However, are you turning yourself into a money exchange, an unlicensed money exchange, once you're charging fees for that?
No, because it's still a non-custodial wallet. We're not holding any of it. We're just charging them for the ability to use the infrastructure. So
okay. Unlike, say, localbitcoin.com, whatever it was.
We would.
Very different.
So, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, right? But
right. Yeah, it's a good conversation to have, though.
Outstanding.
I wanted to say, I just want to look at what we've got on here real quick. So this is, it sounds like we've got a pretty good idea of like what it would take to do that, right? And so what we would be putting that in against would be the dollar metrics, anonymous posting, matter trade in DEN, lot swap, cross posting, at referencing. Let's see.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
So layered chat DMs goes away, so that frees up a spot in the 13 slots we have. So stickies and pins. The happy button is really interesting, more than maybe people realize. That one's really interesting, especially for in the climate right now, about like how much uproar there is about Elon buying Twitter and what people how social media should be. The happy button thing would be interesting for people to look at, because that's the one that like predicts how you're going to be interpreted by others. Hey, you might not want to be so mad in this post.
Yeah.
The proof reports, layer metrics and leaderboards. That would be probably where you would find what you were talking about, Joe. Like, okay, where does it exist on the networks? You could have all the different networks on your leaderboard about which one holds the most external matter, that kind of thing. Dark mode could maybe go on a back burner if we needed room for something that was more, I don't know, utility or brought more features. Smart contract and factor. So there's what we have on there right now. And so this would be basically, what would we call this that we're talking about in this list of things to vote on?
Good question.
Add.
Well, those need to be, some of those need to be consolidated. Well, it could go together. We could probably take a couple out. I don't know.
Yeah, we could table that for next week and kind of chew on it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I guess we would probably take the last vote. I would think that anything that had a portion of the vote would probably stay from last.
That's true.
Time,
yeah.
Right. That would be one way to do it.
Yeah, because
that probably a lot that don't have votes. So
that there's interest there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I don't want to create a situation where everyone wants to cash out a bunch of matter either, even though that will add liquidity to the market. You know, I'm talking about the external market.
Yeah,
it would add liquidity. It would be a kind of a natural way to move liquidity into the natural market. And what better time to do it when the price of crypto is down?
Yeah, I think I'm one of those people too. Everything's shaken up now, so it's like, cool. All right, maybe there's fewer things to shadow out the cool projects.
But gentlemen, I appreciate your time and consideration here, and
appreciate you too.
It's something that obviously isn't going to happen quickly, but
it's got to start somewhere, though.
Yeah, and I really think that's part of our incentive is for people to earn from their postings and evaluation. We talk about it, but we're not giving them an avenue. Let me correct that. It's not that we're not giving them an avenue. The only avenue that they have costs them about 618 matter just in fees.
Gotcha. Yeah, if you convert that, that's a big burn.
Yeah, that's a huge burn.
I like that. I like price. I haven't thought of it that way. I like pricing the fees in matter.
Right.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea of what you're doing, because if you think about matter is such a very good tool to use that way, because you think about how much it's like your day job. If you know how much you make a week, whenever you spend money, you're like, oh man, this is like 2 weeks worth of matter or something like that. You know?
Right.
So you can quantify it in your head more. Like, oh man, do I want to blow this much matter? It took me this long to get it. Yeah.
Now that was last week.
Yeah.
Today's a different story.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah. So I guess where do we go from here, gentlemen? I mean, what do I do? What do I need to do to get this on the list?
Joe, can you take that one? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly,
I don't think we've actually figured out the how-to. I think maybe
some of that can still be done after the fact, like once it's voted on. We don't have to sit down and literally engineer it right now. But it sounds like we have at least two concepts that could very well work, and that's enough to have an idea of what to do.
Joe, what's your concept or thoughts on matter still being the name that's going out into the market?
I mean, without a full rebrand, I would just keep it the same. It'd be matter on each network, right? So, which should be fine. I think something like I'm frankly, there have been a couple of cases where people have done something similar, but we've wanted to do this forever. We just haven't ever had the reasoning to do it, right? So,
and I think nobody in the community, fought hard to get matter listed on any of the coin market caps to kind of help secure that name. You know what I mean?
I've thought about that a little bit. Like, I'm not sure what CoinGecko takes, but I've seen a bunch of garbage on there, so I figure it must not be too hard.
well, no, I mean, yes and no.
It was a joke, mostly.
Yes and no. Yeah, I know. Yes and no. But there is like I said, there is an MTR that has a backing of a pretty large firm, and I'm trying to scan through.
You're talking about Matter with Polygon or with
no, there's maybe, and it's a pretty large backing, a pretty large.
Yeah, they came out with that after we launched ours, so you can see on chain who had it first. I don't know what the process is for quote unquote centralizing a branding, a name to where it's controlled and trademarked and all that, but
it's all in all truth the way that is done is stupid. That I've used accounting software that didn't. I mean, literally. This is for crypto accounting, so you can pay your proper taxes on what you traded, and you put it in there, and I look at a coin that is literally dead now, not listed anywhere, it's gone to zero, and it's showing it at $2. I'm like, wait, what is this? And it's like, oh, it has the same ticker. They ignore the fucking contract address.
Oh, really?
It's like, what are you doing accounting with crypto for? And not you should be keying on the goddamn contract address, not on the ticker.
It's because the legacy
theoretically go in there and I'm going to create a new ticker for BTC and show that all of my Bitcoin is worth $1 now. Like, oh, there you go. That's legitimate. It's ridiculous.
Right. Well, yeah, it's the legacy system. The legacy system protected the ticker. You can't have an identical ticker on NASDAQ, on on the SP, on the DAO or anything.
Yeah, if Ethereum were well designed, in my opinion, they would have a better model for the way they do fees. And in the same process, you could have built-in decentralized exchanges, literally, and core protocol. Yeah, and you could just say, oh, because there is liquidity there, based upon the amount of liquidity is your fee. So transferring a token is going to be a percentage based upon how much liquidity there is. Very simple, very clean. And with that, they could then even have registrations for the tickers, and then it would actually make sense.
Bingo, right. Yeah. We're on the same page with that one. Yeah.
We'll just make it arbitrary. Whatever you put in the box, fine.
I mean, we're not at all against, if we wanted to do a full rebrand. The DAO could decide to do it. It's fine. Mm-hmm. I've had a whole bunch of people tell me, "Oh, you shouldn't have said Den because Den has negative connotations." I'm like, "What? What? It's a freaking den for a dragon. It is a word, right?"
How in the world does that have negative connotations?
To them, it does. Maybe.
I don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's dumb.
What is it, like an opium den or something?
No. There's really bad stuff, but it was like there was one group that called themselves Den back in the 90s. That had something to do with Hollywood and children. And it was like, yes, that's a bad thing. But guess what? I don't give a shit what those people did. It has nothing to do with it's like saying I can't use certain words in the English language because it might offend you. It's like, no thanks, right? So I don't know. But yes, but a full, if we did matter and energy, we almost did something with dark matter, but we kept it simple. So we could do all manner of things. I mean, it's not against, it's not unreasonable. And I think this is a really good idea, because if it is a priority, I don't know, right?
Right.
But this would be very cool, and it would be very interesting, because like we said, when we moved to LCP from Ethereum, and then we did both, and we ran it for a few months with both Ethereum and Den native. And 99.99%, I think Dave might have been the only person doing LCP on the outside for a while.
Could have been me, because I was already doing it one way, and I just didn't feel like doing it the other way yet.
Right. And then when we turned that off, it's like, it was an obvious thing. It's like, why would people pay fees when they don't need to? So,
Well, folks, I have a hard break at 3. I'm sorry, but could we? Maybe not. We won't blow so much time in the meeting, but could we? I guess I don't know. Do I start writing up somewhat of a proposal, and then we can have a conversation again next week to finalize that?
We can definitely we can do that. We can hit on it again next week and maybe have a more concise what I'd like to get to is like, what do we call it on the list of like on the, for lack of a better term, the roadmap that we vote on every time we get a feature done. It's kind of a roadmap that you reshuffle every time you finish something, but that's fine. We get to the point where like, okay, what do we call it? What's the idea and the concept? So we can put it in there.
Right.
And then maybe by then we'll have DMs anyway, and we'll have a new thing to vote on the following week. So
That sounds
cool.
good.
Awesome.
That sounds good.
Well, thanks again.
I will say real quick, I will say we could do, I mean, if we want, I mean, this is a meeting, we could do a design session live, which might be interesting.
Yeah, that's something else that we can talk about later, but I do think this meeting could be more interesting than it is, because there's a lot of things that we could, like there's stuff we talk about that is interesting legitimately that don't take place on these governance calls. And I think that if number one, if they were maybe pushed a little harder and they were more interesting, and we had people like I am on talking about this stuff, then there would be at least enough. There would at least be more understanding about what's going into it under the hood, sort of thing, and like what the trajectory is, because I feel like that's definitely something that the messaging, communication, and getting that across. And
Mr. Norton needs to leave, but
yes,
we could make this meeting short and then have design sessions during the week occasionally, right? Where we say, hey, we're going to design. How are we going to do anonymous posts? Let's have a live, open forum to talk about that.
I would be interested in that. Yep.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. That'd be great.
All right.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and everything that you do for the entire community. It's seen, it's felt, and it's appreciated.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. Take care.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Cheers.
See ya.
All right. So that was excellent. Actually, that was a great conversation. So thank you. And again, that is open to anyone who has something like that they want to talk about. This meeting is open to that, and you can find the link at the top of the agenda. We've been putting them out the day before or 2 days before. That's honestly, that's what I found worked best on the coffee show. I'd put them out a week ahead of time, and it didn't perform as well. So I've just been putting it out the day before or whatever. But that is everything that we had to talk about today. So quick reminders. We've got WBRT was earlier today. We do that at 11 a.m. Eastern in the WBRT layer. Super Happy is on Tuesdays. So TNT, right? Tuesdays and Thursdays. You get Super Happy and World Blockchain. Those are my two, like, probably favorite ones, right? Just because Super Happy has updates that I typically don't know about potentially. So I'm trying to, even though I'm pretty tuned in, I don't know most stuff that goes on outside of specifically what I'm doing in Den, And then World Blockchain is always great. Today was cool. We had not random, but freestyle was the topic. And then of course I do Coffee with Den on Wednesday mornings. That's at 9 a.m. Eastern. I do that with T Swift or Die and Gravity Crab. They're there almost every time. And then I think Satoshi Sean's going to come in on the next one. Maybe we'll get Flo back on. We've started to have guests on that show, so that's cool. So those are live every week on Den. And then I'm doing just a sort of something like this where it's not a show, but it's just me for 3 hours in front of my computer working on stuff on Monday morning. And it's sort of an office. It's actually, I just call it office hours, and it's open for anybody that wants to like troubleshoot something, right? Something's been bugging you over the weekend and you haven't been able to figure it out. Cool. Let's talk about it Monday morning, that kind of thing. So that is our Gov Call and our updates. Oh, also, if you participate in those shows, you'll get rewarded. World Blockchain gives out ownership of the show itself. And I might actually have to start talking about spinning off coffee into its own layer as well and doing the same sort of model that you do for World Blockchain, because I like the model a lot. You've been doing it. It's like a year now that show has been going, right?
I think the next show is the year show.
Yeah. 50 episode, 50 something. Yeah. So that's turned into it. I mean, it was a good model in the beginning, but it's proven itself. So I might want to do that with coffee as well. We shall see. All right. Awesome. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Joe, for making time to meet with us every week and for updating us every week on Super Happy and all of that stuff. So you are appreciated, sir. And to all of the denizens out there, you are appreciated too, all of you.
Yes. Thanks everybody. There's tons of really good stuff going on. So yes.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to go to the market now, and I'm going to go talk to IRL people and see what they think about all this.
Excellent.
Here is Into the Dragon. Have a good week. End.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.